What's going on, everybody? Jolts here from the Token Minorities, and we are back with NPL Season 7 Week 6 against none other than Schady and his Bayern Munich. If you don't already know about him, I would be a little bit surprised, but just in case, make sure to check him out. He will be linked in the description below. I believe the list of links is finally updated now, so I do apologize that I was kind of behind the game on updating that with some of the coaching changes that happened in the majors and the minors, but it's updated now. Make sure to check out Schady if you're not already subbed to him and give him that nice sub, because he's a really awesome guy. Now, let's dive into this matchup a little bit and where we stand. So you can see in front of you now the standings for the league. 5 weeks in, we're at the midway point of the season. The Toronto Staraptors are currently 3-2 with a +3 differential and number 4 in the Luxury Conference. This means that if the season ended today, we would be in playoffs as the 4 seed and have to face Gypsy in round 1. That's not ideal, but it is playoffs, so that's good at least. But regardless, we're in a pretty good spot for this point of the season, but that doesn't mean we can take our foot off the gas. We have to win at least 3 of my last 5 games, I would say, to safely be in playoffs, and even then that wouldn't be guaranteed, because the playoff race, especially in my conference for the 3 through 5 spots, is just really tight. You can see 3 teams are 3-2, only divided by differential right now, and if any of us lose, we're pretty much out of the top 4 for Week 6 playoff picture. So yeah, this week is super important. We need to beat Schady. We've had pretty good luck against him in the past. I might have gotten a little lucky in the first time I played him, and luck kind of canceled each other out when we played each other in the PPL, but regardless, we are 2-0 against him, and we're going to see if we can make that 3-0 here in our 3rd ever matchup. So really looking forward to this game for sure. Now, let's take a look at the team matchup, or the draft matchup here, as my opponent Schady has Mega Kangaskhan, Skarmory, Latias, Nidoqueen, Weavile, Seismitoad, Comfey, Gourgeist, Heliolisk, Combusken, and Floatzel, with Weavile being the Z captain. If you look at my team, we actually have some pretty key transactions here that are coming into play for this battle. Now, at the end of last week, I agreed with Matty Brolic to trade off my Cofagrigus for his Cresselia, and the reason why I did that is, well, there's 2 reasons. One is that I really didn't think I would need to bring Cofag in any of my games coming up, quite honestly. I felt like its role on the team wasn't really needed, and the main reason I had it was for things like Mega Kang and Mega Lopunny. Of course, this is the Mega Kang week, but I got Cresselia in exchange, which arguably is an even better response to Mega Kang than Cofag would be. So certainly happy with that end of the deal, but also it's nice because now I have a defensive Pokemon that's purely defensive, that can be used offensively still, but even so, it's more or less a very defensive Pokemon in terms of its base stats, and it's levitating off the ground. I don't have to worry about T-Spikes with it, so it's really nice for that. It also is a nice toxic bait, toxic lure for the potential Zangoose. I could bring a nice Cresselia Zangoose core and have a lot of fun with that too in my team build. So really liked how Crest looked on the team. Then in order to make room for Crest, because, did I say Clef? I meant Crest, although Clef would be nice too. Anyways, in order to make room for the Crest, I did have to drop one thing and make it a little bit lower in value. I did drop the Aromatisse. I got a little bit of work out of it here in my last game against Verd, but I really didn't like it too much as a Pokemon. Not that it's bad, it's just not my style in my opinion. So I did swap it out for Granbull, which is slightly less passive of a fairy, and that nice Intimidate ability, and also still being a Cleric, I feel like it could really support my team well, especially when I have to face Weavile for the 2nd time this season. As you can probably tell from my draft, I'm kind of weak to Weavile just as a whole, so picking up a solid response to it in Granbull certainly is helpful here for this week. So those are the 2 transactions worth noting here for Toronto. I don't really anticipate making any more transactions this season because I really like how the team feels. It seems to just flow well for how I like to build and how I like to play, so most likely won't be making any more changes on that. So let's take a look at some of the bigger threats on his team. So he does have the Mega Kangaskhan, which is just inherently a big threat to any team. Fortunately, I do have the Crest, like I've already said, that is able to deal pretty well with that defensively, not being 2-hit KO'd by anything that it has, as well as being able to do 32% each turn with Rocky Helmet if I choose to run that, as if he runs a special Kangaskhan, it's really doing nothing to Crest. So Crest is a very good response to Mega Kang. I do need to look out for Toxics, however, and as a result, if I'm going to be relying on Cresselia to wall the Kang, I do need to have a lot of support on it to make sure that Toxics don't wear me down. But Mega Kane, big threat. Weavile, huge threat. We've already faced it in week 1 this season against Trev. Managed to come out on top of it against it there. Issue being, the second time around against the same mon means that I probably cannot use the same defensive strategy to deal with it, meaning that my item list Rotom Wash is not really something I want to bring for the Weavile this time, because that can easily be abused. It is also Shady's Z move user. He could easily run a Z knockoff, so the Dark Cold Eclipse or whatever it's called, and that would blow back Rotom regardless of the fact that I'm itemless, so that's not something I really feel like I can risk in this game, and as a result I would actually not be surprised at all to see the Darkinium Z Weavile in this matchup. That said, I still think Life Orb's a little better to help him wear down Crest in the long run, but even so, I could definitely see that being something he brings, and as a result I don't really want to bring Rotom for that purpose, at least in this matchup. But those really are his 2 best offensive threats against me. I think my defensive matchup is pretty solid, and that's something that I can certainly abuse here in this game, and that I can really bulk him out with my defense. I don't need to take more of a hyper-offensive approach, because my natural bulk and my just natural bulky offense nature of my team matches up well against what he has, especially the Cresselia. But that said, coupling with the Weavile and the Mega Kang, it's hard to kind of predict what he's going to do, because Schady is pretty unpredictable. I feel like he's the kind of guy that likes to bring a lot of his low-tier stuff, even when it may not be the best possible option. Not to say Shady's a bad builder, he's a very good builder, but that's just something, a trend I've noticed. He likes to bring his low-tier stuff just because he likes to try to catch people off guard, I feel. And that said, I do need to really respect his low-tier options like Combusken and Floatzel. I think those are both mons he could definitely bring. Combusken switches in well against the Mega Houndoom and the Superior, probably the only mon, definitely the only mon on his team that can easily switch into both of them. So that's certainly an option. Unfortunately for him, Combusken really doesn't do anything to the rest of my team, but it does switch into those. And he's also brought Floatzel a lot this season in a lot of matchups. It's matched up better than I would have thought it would on paper. So with that in mind, and also considering I've kind of embodied by Floatzel a lot of the times that I've mocked Schady, just helping him out with his builds, I definitely think he could bring Floatzel against me if he thinks I might not respect it enough. So that's something to think about. But the best teammate I think he could possibly have for the Mega Kang Weavile combo is the Heliolisk, because just like I've seen in the past with some of these other electric types against my team, Heliolisk can just U-turn a Volt Switch on whatever my switch in is and allow him to go straight into his physical threats. So while I do feel like I can build appropriately so that Weavile plus Kang can't beat me on its own, I would not at all be surprised to see the Heliolisk there to help support that. Defensively, I think the Skarmory is solid against most of my team as well. In fact, I think it's essential. I think there's no chance that he doesn't bring Skarmory. The question just becomes, what is he going to use it for? But yeah, so I think the only mon that's like 100% off the table is Comfy. I have a Jirachi and a Crobat. Like I really don't see Comfy coming unless he's that desperate for a check to Terrakion, but he has a lot of defensive checks to that. So even so, let's talk about some of my threats real quick before I move into the team builders. So I do have a couple pretty big threats. Most notably is the Mega Houndoom, as he literally doesn't have a switch into that outside of maybe a fat Combusken or like an AV Seismitoad, Spadef, Nidoqueen kind of, but that's pretty much chipped down after 3 Fire Blast. I believe this 3 it KO'd pretty easily. An AV Seismitoad is probably his best response to it, but yeah, he's just blown back by Mega Doom, quite frankly, which is nice. I like having good matchups for Mega Doom because that's the Mega I really wanted to shine here with my draft. So yeah, that's pretty cool. The other, there's 2 other threats here. The next one is Crobat, as he doesn't really have much at all for a Crobat that also has Taunt, as it does outspeed his entire team with ease, and his only real switch into it, I feel, is the Skarmory, which can just be taunted and roosted up on, and I can beat it in the long run 1v1. So Crobat's very nice against him offensively and even defensively, as it can take hits from a lot of stuff on his team, which could definitely come in handy. But the biggest win con on my team against him, I've already said it, it's Cresselia. Cresselia punishes him so hard. It walls so much of his team and can set up on so much of his team as well. All he really has for it is Weavile and Taunt users, quite honestly, and Roar, I guess, if he wants to bring that too. Yeah, this thing is an absolute monster against him, and as you'll see now from the team build I'm going to go ahead and hop on over to, I am going to build this team around Cresselia heavily, where Cresselia is easily the main win con, the top win con, no matter what he brings, as it can seriously punish him if I support it properly. So here you see the win con, the Cresselia with Psyshock, Rest, Calm Mind, and Moonblast. Primarily Fizdef with the Rocky Helmet allows me to still take hits from Mega King. Unfortunately, I do have a chance to be 3-hit KO'd by Mega King's return if he is adamant. I believe even a small chance if he's Jolly, with not being a max Fizdef set, but the fact remains that I really thought I wanted to outpace a modest Nidoqueen, or at least a modest Nidoqueen with appropriate speed creep. I think it would creep down a little bit, but even so, I felt that was a pretty important benchmark to hit, just in case he was a taunt Nidoqueen, as that's something I could certainly see against my team, as a taunt Nidoqueen would allow him to potentially deal with the likes of both the Cresselia and the Jirachi, as well as potentially Granbull, as well as maybe Gudra. It can deal with a lot of stuff on my team that might be trying to like set up or do some like supportive moves. I think taunt is a possibility. I don't think it's that likely necessarily, but it is a possibility, and being able to outspeed that and get off an extra Calm Mind before being taunted could be pretty clutch here in this game, as taunt, the way this team is designed, taunt is like the only thing that can really stop this Cresselia from doing what it's supposed to do, and that is to sweep late in games. So super solid overall against him. Not a whole lot else to say outside of the fact that I don't have coverage for Skarmory, but unless that Skarmory is taunt or Whirlwind, this will be able to beat it 1v1 anyways in terms of PP and whatnot. Now I am Rest instead of Moonlight in this game, because I fully expect to see Toxic on Mega King, and I can't let this thing just get Toxic super freely, so I need to have Rest on it. I really see no downside to doing it, because he struggles so much on his team to be able to 2-hit KO this with anything. The only thing is Weavile. Honestly, the only thing on his team that 2-hit KOs this is Weavile, so as long as I can chip down the Weavile if he's Life Orb, or just burn his Z-move if he is a Z-move, then this should be able to win the game in the long run. Now, to support this Cresselia, I need to have an excellent switch into Weavile. Can't really bring Rotom again. I could, but it's predictable, and he also has Seismitoad and Latias, which kind of makes Rotom meh. So we have probably the best possible teammate on my team, and that is the Granbull. So both of the new pickups coming in here immediately here in Week 6 against Schady, and this is also a Rocky Helmet user designed to be my switch into Weavile. Very solid at doing that job. Really only needed 3 coverage moves and Heal Bell for the Cresselia specifically, but it also could be nice to shrug off a Toxic or a Burn or whatever on the other members of my team. I also have Play Rough for General Stab and 40 EVs and Attack to make sure I can always, believe 2-hit KO Fizdef Latias, just in case he's some kind of annoying Calm Mind set. And Ice Punch just for general coverage against his most likely switch-ins, to this being the, most notably the Nidoqueen. I think that could be a hard switch-in, so Ice Punch certainly would help me wear that down, as wearing down Nidoqueen could be potentially wearing down his only switch into Mega Houndoom on his team, so that could be very handy. And then I have the Close Combat specifically for the Mega Kangaskhan slash the potential Skarmory switch-in. It won't do anything to Skarmory, but it does do more than Ice Punch or Play Rough would, so I felt it was worth bringing the Close Combat here for this matchup. So that's the Granbull. Not a whole lot else to say on that. Just a really good partner with the Cresselia here, helping support him. Now a little bit further with the support for Cresselia, we have the Choice Scarf Jirachi. This set is super important because of Healing Wish. Late game Healing Wish into the Cresselia could be devastating for him, especially once I have sufficiently weakened the Weavile, his only true response to the Cresselia. So this is designed to do that. I do have 216 EVs and Attack to ensure that I OHKO any Weavile, or at least the most likely speed creeping Weavile. After Stealth Rock with Iron Head, it also lets me chip the Latias down a little bit faster with U-Turn while maintaining maximum bulk to take hits from Latias if he is a more offensive variant that I might struggle to switch into. And of course I have the EVs in speed to outpace. I gotta look into that really quickly. Hitting 306, so I think I'm actually outspeeding a +2 Combuskin from speed boosts. Like max speed Combuskin at +2 with my Choice Scarf. It's not super important to do that, but I felt I might as well, just in case I really need to get last-ditch effort chip damage on it before the baton passes or something spooky like that. So that is the Jirachi, just a nice late-game win con as well with the Choice Scarf. Iron Head, I really don't think I'll click Iron Head unless he brings the Comfy. I don't really want to be that guy that flinches people down with Iron Head, especially not Schady, as we are pretty good friends, so I feel like it's kind of a dick move to do, quite honestly, to try to flinch people down with Scarred Ironhead. But if he brings Comfy and it's a desperate situation, then I have it there just in case. But yeah, probably won't be clicking that at all. So that's the first 3 members. These 2 are the dedicated support, quite honestly, for the Cresselia, as well as Jirachi maintaining momentum on my team, potentially getting into this massive threat called Mega Houndoom. So this is just a pretty standard-ish set with the little tech and Super Fang. So Dark Pulse Fire Blast Super Fang and Nasty Plot Super Fang allows me to hit AV users for 50% damage. That's the main idea. The first time I get Mega Houndoom in, if there is a potential, like a switch in that I'm a little skeptical of, that I think might be Assault Vest and maybe preserved in the back for the Mega Houndoom, I'll just Super Fang on that turn to weaken it, and that'll ensure that it's 2-hit KO the next time Mega Houndoom comes in. So that's very clutch, I think, in this matchup. And if I'm ever able to get up to +2 from Nasty Plot, then yeah, this thing just goes absolutely wild against this team. As his mons that outspeed me are pretty limited. He only really has Floatzel, which is a speed tie. At least in his eyes, it's not actually a speed tie with how I'm invested here, but that's one option, I suppose. He outspeeds me with Weavile, but I do have enough bulk investment to actually survive a banded low kick after rocks. So that's where the 120 HP comes into play here. And then the only other mon that can outspeed this on his team, that's it, actually, unless he has a Choice Scarf on something. So, yep, this is solid against him overall. Really doesn't switch into this well at all. Now, next up is the Crobat. This is a pretty interesting mon because I only am running Brave Bird, despite the fact that he does have a Skarmory, which theoretically could hard wall me. The combination of Taunt and Roost with Brave Bird actually allows me to beat that 1v1. So that's pretty good against him. I do have the Sky Plate to boost my power so that I do more damage to Mega Kang in case he wants to try to make that a switch in. It also lets me do a lot more to things like a Seismitoad, which I could definitely see as being Spadef for the Mega Houndoom in this matchup, so being able to break that down really quickly with a Sky Plate boosted Jolly Max Attack Brave Bird could come in clutch for sure. This also lets me pretty much Oko Floatzel, I believe, or get very, very close. Floatzel has paper thin defenses, and it allows me to definitely 2-hit KO it after a bulk up, which could come in play as well. It also just does more to Nidoqueen, more to Gourgeist, just more to everything on his team. That's the idea, to break things down with this Pokemon. It's more of a breaker in this matchup, as well as being a stall breaker as well with the Taunt plus Roost combo. It allowed me to wear down Skarmory, which otherwise is probably the biggest nuisance for this team here that I'm making. So that's all I have to say on that. It's outpacing the Floatzel, I believe, here. It also, okay, it actually outpaces a Weavile, who is creeping me, creeping Floatzel. I don't think that's really going to come into play, but you never really know. I had a few EVs I could mess with, so I just threw him in there to see if I can maybe catch him. So last up is the Swampert, as the rest of my team really was pretty weak to the Volt Switch spam that Heliolisk would provide. So a max Spadef Swampert was probably my best option to help me deal with that, as most of my team doesn't care at all about Grass Knot, so having this option plus the rest of my team really shuts down the Heliolisk well, in my opinion. And this is also a nice rocker, toxic user for a lot of members of his team. And Earthquake plus Ice Beam hits pretty much everything hard outside of the Skarmory. So again, it goes back to that Skarmory. I'd really like to be able to wear that down with my Crobat, or even with my Jirachi that was packing Thunderbolt that I never actually talked about, so I'll go back to that really quickly. The Jirachi does pack Thunderbolt, which can 2-hit KO, or at least has a chance to 2-hit KO Fizdef Skarmory, which is what I expect, so that could be nice there. But yeah, the Swampert overall relatively standard, aside from being more Spadef instead of physically invested. So that's the team here, very, very heavily centered around winning with the Cresselia, but I do think that's just a very likely outcome in this matchup, especially when I have all of the support, and the only way he can really stop me is with Taunt, and I could I shouldn't say easily, but I very well could get rid of all of his Taunt users before having to go for games. So that is a scenario that I'm willing to deal with if it arises. So that's the team. Definitely pretty solid, I think, overall. I would say the matchup is in my favor slightly, just because his offensive options aren't super good against me outside of Kang and Weavile, so just mainly Weavile, quite honestly. Weavile could pick up most of his kills in this game because it's quite honestly his best option to do so. So it'd be very interesting to see how he builds around this. Excuse me. And without further ado, let's hop on over to the battle and we can see how this went down. So my opponent Schady decided to bring the Latias, Weavile, Skarmory, Seismitoad, Mega Kang, and the Nidoqueen, while we of course brought the Cresselia, Mega Houndoom, Crobat, Jirachi, Granbull, and the Swampert. So first and foremost, I do not see Heliolisk on this team, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's not a bad call on his end, because on paper I do have some nice responses to it in the Swampert and Goodra. I think the Mon that I might have expected to see less was the Latias, because I do have the Jirachi, which is pretty much just a hard counter, and the Granbull potentially could also be annoying for it as well, and in my case I also have the Scarf Swampert, and Cresselia could theoretically be good against the Latias too, so Scarf Swampert, it's the Def Swampert. But even so, the team he brought is very threatening, and there's a lot of potential rockers on this team as well, which makes it tricky to kind of predict what he wants to do. I could definitely see him going for more of a hazard stack approach against my team if he thinks he can deal well with my Crobat, but we'll see on that. That's certainly a possibility. He could even bring T-Spikes here, since I did not bring the Zangoose. T-Spikes would wear down my Swampert and Granbull pretty quickly. Mega Houndoom too, but that's less important, as its health is usually less important to be concerned about. But yeah, so overall, I think my best lead is definitely the Crobat here in this situation, just because it's able to taunt any of his leads, which I would expect to be a rocker on turn 1. I do not at all expect him to lead Weavile. If he does, I'm going to go hard Granbull anyways and maybe get some Rocky Helmet damage on it, break a potential Sash, and then I can fire off a pretty free player up against most of his team. So I would not be too concerned about that, but otherwise Crobat is easily the best lead here. And we can go ahead and hop right on into this and see if we can start the season 4-2. As my opponent decides to lead off with the Skarmory, as a lead off with the Crobat, I can just click Taunt here, preventing him to go for hazards on turn 1, and he does just reveal the Spike. So this tells me he's going to go for more of a hazard stack approach. He also reveals the Rocky Helmet here on my Brave Bird, as while that does kind of suck and mean that it's harder for me to 1v1 him, it also means he doesn't have leftovers, which then in turn makes it easier for me to 1v1 him. So in the long run, I will win this exchange as long as he allows me to continue taunting him and whatnot. But here, as the taunt wears off and he's down to 58%, noticing that he's losing this battle, I expect him to switch out into whatever his defensive wall might be. So I just go for a Roost, as he actually reveals to be a Scarfed Seismitoad instead of a defensive wall. So yeah, okay, Schady, that's an interesting bring, but here we're just going to fire off a Brave Bird, not really fearing anything from a Seismitoad, and we do like 60% to that thing, which is pretty awesome. Even without my Skyblade, was able to do a ton of damages here. He makes a nice switch into his Mega Kang on my Roost, trying to get a little offensive momentum, but here I kind of expect him to maybe go for a Toxic, but I felt like I had enough responses in the back to get rid of the Toxic that it was worth going hard into the Cresselia here on the Kang, and he just goes for a return, revealing he is actually Jolly, probably max attack on that Kang. Now here, I'm going to pull a double into my Granbull, just in case he wanted to stay in and try to just break me down a little bit with his King, as he actually had a chance to 3-hit KO me there. As here I make a little bit of a misplay, defogging before taunting. I should have taunted on this turn and then defogged. The Spike wasn't super urgent to get rid of quite yet in the game, so I definitely should have made sure that the Skarmory remained low instead of defogging immediately, but it's a small misplay. Won't really come into play here later in the game, I don't think. I mean, maybe kind of, but not really. As we're kind of back in that same situation again, where we're taunting and Brave Birding, trying to weaken him down. As here I'm going to make a bit of an aggressive play on this turn, because I felt, it's not really aggressive so to speak, but it was a prediction, as I felt like we were at the position in that exchange where he would probably want to try something else. We've already established that I beat him 1v1, and he's probably going to switch and do literally anything else on his team that's not named the Weavile, because he doesn't want to take a Brave Bird. I really didn't expect him to go into the Latias either, so the options were really left with things like Kang, or maybe the Seismitoad again, but more likely the Nidoqueen to try to maybe get up a hazard to force me out with a potential Ice Beam and get up a hazard or something like that. So I double into my Cresselia here, and we do manage to get that play right, which is pretty nice. I'm just going to fire off a Calm Mind, because I really don't fear anything from this, as he does get up his Stealth Rock. Now here, I guess I already showed it here, I'm actually just going to click Moonblast, because I felt like his Nidoqueen's health was so valuable to him, especially after seeing the damage from I haven't seen any damage yet, so I guess I shouldn't say that, but I really felt that Nidoqueen was going to be the most valuable member of his team to him in terms of dealing with the Mega Houndoom, so I thought he would switch out, trying to preserve the Nidoqueen and go hard into his Weavile, which would have been very risky on his play, but I do just go for the Moonblast there regardless, and I'm actually going to click it again here on the following turn, just in case he tries to be that guy and make the play right after I make the prediction. So we do go for it again, as the worst case scenario. For me, he just goes right into his Skarmory, which really doesn't matter much, because I can just rest up for free here, as he's going to, I believe, set up a Spike or Roost on this turn. I think a Spike. He Roost up first, and he's probably going to Spike here on this guaranteed turn of sleep. And then after that, he's going to actually switch into his Weavile to try to exert some offensive pressure. Now, the problem is, Cresselia is fat, right? I really don't care about anything he goes for. Black Hole Eclipse does not OHKO me. A knockoff doesn't even get close. And, yeah, so I survived this hit. I do have Healing Wish in the back if he did go for the Black Hole Eclipse. And we're going to be able to get off a chunk of damage on this Weavile, which is super nice. This means that after I get Stealth Rocks up, essentially, this thing cannot deal with Cresselia, and we are in a very, very good position to be able to win this game as here. Expecting him to probably be Black Hole Eclipse because he did not reveal Life Orb. I'm going to scout for it by going into Gramble, and he does actually burn it there, which is really nice. Not going to have to worry about that now with my crest later in the game as here. We make a play, and we get burned. So this was something. Alright, let me back up real quick here. So I go into Gramble, like I said before, as it goes for Black Hole Eclipse, and it does like 15% to Gramble, which is hilarious now. Alright, let's let this play out. Okay, let's pause. So, we've already established, I think, based upon how he's been playing around Crest, that Toxic, I believe Toxic Skarm, I think he's already revealed Toxic Skarm, but regardless, he only has Toxic on Skarm, right? And Weavile, that basically means that Weavile is his only way to deal with the rest of Cresselia. So that means that he really can't afford to risk the Weavile here on this turn, because if I just stay in with Gramble and click Play Rough, which quite honestly I am free to do, I have no reason not to. I don't lose anything if he goes hard into the Nidoqueen because I have Cresselia. I don't lose anything if he goes hard into the Skarmory because Skarmory's not an offensive threat. So really, he has... It's very unlikely for him to try to stay in on this turn and try to attack or flinch my Gramble, because what does he gain from it? Unless he is making a super try-hard prediction of a double, and Icicle crashes on my incoming Crobat, which was the play I decided to make, trying to catch the Skarmory coming in, thinking it allowed me to defog away the hazards after a taunt. So, you know, good on him for making the super try-hard play. I don't really agree with it, but you know what, it worked out for him, so props to him on that. It puts us in a little bit of a trickier spot here early on. So I'm going to fire off a T-Bolt with Jirachi just in case he tries to go hard into the Skarmory, as we manage to paralyze the Mega King, which does kind of suck for him in a sense, but with how the battle plays out, I don't know if it was super consequential, but I guess we'll cross that bridge if we get there. Now here, I'm just going to go into my Gramble, because with the Weavile so weakened, I don't really think I need this thing anymore, as here I'm going to fire off an Ice Punch, thinking it would kill, but I guess he has a little bit of bulk investment on this, and it allowed him to survive. I just went for Ice Punch in case he wanted to go into the Nidoqueen, as that's the mon I would most want to weaken if he's trying to gain some sort of offensive edge. Now here, as we knock out the Kang, he made a nice play there on the last turn, going for the Wish, allowing him to actually get the Weavile back up to near full health. So now, my priority becomes I need to get Stealth Rocks on the field so I can get this Weavile into range of unboosted Moonblast, so the Cresselia is able to beat it without any boosts, which will basically ensure that Cresselia wins the remainder of this game. So I do need to try to make that happen. I need Stealth Rocks up as early as possible. We go for the Fire Blast on the switch into the Seismitoad. Really didn't matter that it missed too much, just based upon how the rest of these turns played out, as if I had hit it, he would have at the worst, or at the best, survived for me. At the best for me, survived on 1%. I did not have a chance to kill him unless he was like drop Spit F Nature or something. So not the worst thing in the world. We are able to get the Stealth Rocks up with the Swampert, fire off an Earthquake, and take out the Seismitoad. As now we get the Weavile in on one more round of Stealth Rock. We need one more round, an additional round of Stealth Rock, to be able to take him out with a Moonblast. So that's the goal we're trying to go for here. As I'm going to go into my Jirachi and just click U-turn, because it does take out the Weavile from this range and it covers any other potential options he might have. As he does go into the Latias, so this is just a free switch into my Mega Houndoom. He could be a Culpa Berry, but even if he is, he would need some bulk investment, I believe, to be able to take this Dark Pulse. And if I'm wrong on that, then I still have the Jirachi in the back that could potentially help me deal with that. Plus, of course, I still have the Cresselia in the back that could maybe get a free Calm Mind on it or something. So there's that as an option. Now he's going to go into Weavile to check me, and this is where I have a hair in my face, and this is where we go for game. So I'm going to go into my Jirachi, click Healing Wish, and this will allow me to, of course, heal up the Cresselia back up to full health. And now Cresselia is in at nearly full after rocks, and we can just fire off a free Moonblast, because essentially the only way he wins this game now is if he were to go into his Skarmory there and then try to get a couple critical hits with the Weavile during my Cresselia's sleep turns. That was his only way to win, I think, at this point, as otherwise Cresselia does indeed win the PP War, as I do have the rest, which allows me to basically just chill without attacking for 2 turns for each of my rests, and there was absolutely no way that he'd be able to win this PP War because I have so many Moonblasts. which would force the Skarm to burn a lot of his roosts, and as soon as he runs out of roost, it's essentially over because I have 2 attacks on this in the Psyshock and in the Moonblast. So you're going to see here, after a little while longer, I'm going to get all the way up to +6/+6 from my Calm Minds, and at that point Schady will realize that there's really no way that he's going to be able to get himself out of this one. If he had Taunt on Skarm or Taunt on Nidoqueen, there might have been some hope, but he did not have either of them, and that really was his downfall here in late game. Potentially something that could have been a little bit stronger in prep on his end, but he did more rely on the Toxicking strategy, maybe hoping that I would bring Moonlight instead of Rest, as if that were the case, which quite frankly was on the first draft of this team, then he would have been able to deal with me much better, especially with only having Granbull in the back to, and I guess Jirachi to help get rid of the status, but I felt Rest was obviously much smarter here on my end as, yeah, so this game is going to end very soon. We're not actually going to play out the full PP war. He asked if he could just forfeit here in a few turns just because it would have taken at least, I believe, 50 more turns to finish out the PP war if he played it out in the best possible way, trying to preserve his PP as long as possible and etc. But so yeah, this is going to be over very soon here. So we are going to pick up the win 1-0 as the Cresselia will be able to pick up 3 kills in this game, being the Weavile, Skarmory, and Nidoqueen. So definitely a welcomed addition to the Toronto Staraptors this week, already proving its worth over Kofag for my teams. So definitely excited to have Cress on this draft now. Starting to lose my voice here a little bit, so that about wraps this up. We are going to advance to a 4-2 record, I believe a +4 differential now, which is pretty nice. That's quite frankly the best start I've had in the NPL since Season 4, so that's a welcome change. Definitely, finally feel like I'm starting to play more up to my standards, or more up to my potential, quite honestly, as I feel like the last couple seasons have been a little bit shaky for me. I've had a lot of misplays that are pretty uncharacteristic of how I feel I should be able to play. So yeah, finally feel like I'm playing a little bit better, which is nice moving forward now. Of course, very good game to Schady. I thought he played super well, and he probably would have won if he had Taunt on the Skarmory, or he probably just Taunt on Skarmory specifically. That would have been all he really needed to be able to potentially win the PP war, so good on him there. But then again, I'm not really sure. I don't know, it's tough, because I could have played around that too with Rests and Calm Minding before the Skarm, since I do outspeed, so there's a lot of factors that could have gone into play there on that as well. I'm not really sure how it would have changed if he had Taunt. But anyways, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, guys, and next week we have a game against my Kryptonite, which is Moxie Infernape of Blake of the Baltimore Braviaries. Hopefully we can finally pick up a win against him. That would be pretty nice, but I haven't had too much luck on that in the past. But the matchup, I believe, is in my favor slightly. It's in my favor, so hopefully we'll be able to overcome his whack team building. He's kind of similar to Bird in that regard. He's a very wild team builder, but effective nonetheless, so certainly a tough one on that front for sure. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all next week. Peace.